Hey, welcome to this module. We are going to be talking about failure. This is one of my favorite topics, just like the last one about being obsessed with the process. It's really ironic that I really love talking about failure and I find it more exciting to talk about than success. But the good news is that failure is the way to success. So we are not going to just only be talking about failure. It goes hand in hand. Many of us are super terrified of failure, right? Like we are absolutely averse to it. When we think about failing, it almost feels like death, which makes sense, right? Because many of our ancestors, unfortunately, when they failed, it really could have actually caused them to die. You know, in a world where survival was really hard 2 million years ago, a single slip up could have actually caused one of our early humans to actually die. But today, in a world where survival is so much easier, failing or avoiding failure and fear of failure, all it's really doing for us is causing us to fail ahead of time. Right? So we make sure that we fail, like in our attempt to avoid the discomfort of failure, we end up failing by not showing up at all, by not taking action at all. And so we preemptively fail, right? We make sure that we fail. But failure is totally part of the journey, right? Like if you think about anybody that you look up to or anybody that seems to have massive success, there is a long string of failures that followed them before their success, right? Like J.K. Rowling, her manuscript for Harry Potter got declined by publishers 40 times. Many actors did not like Bryan Cranston didn't get his breakout role until he was in his 50s. Oprah was fired from her news anchor job before she started the Oprah Show. So if it's totally part of the journey, and we have so many examples in real life that failure is ultimately actually harmless. It doesn't actually create death. So we really need to understand what it is that we're actually afraid of so that we can overcome it. Okay, so what is failure? If we go onto Google, this is what it says. Failure is the omission of required or expected action. So what that actually means is that there was a required action that we didn't take in order to create the expected result. Before I learned this, I was really sure that the definition of failure was going to have something to do with incompetency or incapability, right? Like that just shows a lot more about where my mind was at, about what I thought failure meant, right? I was projecting onto this definition. But that's really it. Like the definition of failure is that there was an action that we didn't take. That's it. So if failure is not doing everything that's needed to be done to get to a goal, and then success is doing everything that's needed to be done to reach a goal, then they're really not so different, right? We think that when we go after a goal and we don't reach it, we think that we like took a shot and our attempt like landed on Mars somewhere. And then success is like floating in space, completely out of our radar, completely undetected, right? We just think that we completely missed the mark and nothing worked. And we're even farther away from success. But that is not true. If this is going after a goal and not succeeding, and then this is going after a goal and succeeding, then failure and success are in the same direction. Failure is just missing a few ingredients. Not only that, but it's failure that allows you to figure out what the missing ingredients are. And it's just as important to recognize what is working, right? So you can see what isn't. When we fail at something and we really let ourselves learn from it, then it's literally how we find the map to our success. So if failing is how we find the map to success, then wouldn't we want to double the rate of failure? If the idea of doubling the rate of failure sounds really horrible to you, it just sounds really painful, that's okay. All it really means is that you're educated. It means that you've been through the school system where success is, memorizing a bunch of information and then bringing it to a test, and then if you memorize it, you get an A. We're taught that failure is an absolute no-no, right? And if we get an F on something, if we fail a class, it means something about us. We are told that it means something about us. So really, you just have a habit of making failure mean something about you. And that's why it feels so bad. That's the part that we really avoid. It's not this part, right? This part is magic. This part is awesome. To see what didn't work, what worked, like that part is great. It's the part where it's what we say to ourselves, it's what we make it mean. That's the part that sucks. So what if we could just skip that part and go straight to this part? Something doesn't turn out the way we expect. Okay, no big deal. And then we make it mean, I'm not a good artist, I'm not a real artist, I'm not cut out for this, I'm lazy, and so on. That's the worst thing about failure. So we're actually avoiding failure for the part that we can control. Think about how you feel if you were pouring a glass of water for yourself and you spilled a little bit onto the table. Does it feel absolutely horrible? Do you make it mean that you're a terrible person and you avoid pouring another glass of water for yourself for like a week? Some of you might. It's possible, right? And that's okay. Just find another instance where you don't spin, where another area in your life where if you messed up, like something really small, find evidence that you can feel neutral about failure. That if you feel bad, it's not because of the fail, you feel bad because of what you're thinking about it. If you felt more neutral about failure, do you think you would avoid it as much? So let's neutralize failure. Let's figure out a way to think about failure where it neutralizes it for us, where we feel neutral, or maybe even curiosity or fascination, like anything that would be more useful than despair. I think a lot of us, when we fail, we really think that something's gone wrong, right? We really make it mean that like this is no good, this is a bad sign, this is terrible, this shouldn't have happened. Something's wrong with me. And it hurts so much because we think it should be different. But let's take a very, very simple example of an artist. So let's say an artist does a study from a photo of a human face, okay? And they finish it and it doesn't look quite right. Something's off about it. And they realize that, they've made, after they compare the photo, all that kind of stuff, they ask for feedback, whatever. But point is, they came to the conclusion that the eyes are too close together. Okay, so then next time they go into another study, they pay attention to the proportions around the eyes. They make sure that next time they will make the eyes far apart enough. Now they know, right? Now they know that this is a vital area to pay attention to, that this is a missing part of their skill. And how would that artist have known otherwise? Seriously, there was no way this artist could have known that this was a missing piece in their knowledge until they had made the drawing that didn't look quite right. And some people might say, okay, but there's tutorials, there's books, you learn stuff and all that kind of stuff. Look, LeBron James could send me a video of throwing a free throw and I still will not know how to throw a free throw until I freaking do it, right? I still don't know how. There was no situation where they would have created a drawing that looked right when they had this missing piece of information inside of them. So they were always supposed to make a drawing that didn't look right for them to find out that, hey, here's what's missing in your toolkit. So the only way to have found out was to make a drawing that looked like that, and it was supposed to happen all along in that way. Some people might also say, okay, but I've already, I've done this multiple times, like I've messed up the eyes this many times, and I'm like, okay, then you needed another reminder. You needed to try something different. You still needed that you tried something different, it didn't work, and now you got to try something else, right? You just needed more reminders until you find out a way to do it, until you find the skill inside you. I apply this rule or this idea to any mistake, any failure in life, right? This is a really silly example, but let's just go with it. This is what I came up with. So like recently I had to cancel a nail appointment that I had scheduled. I got in the taxi and was heading to the nail appointment, and I was so just not paying attention. I was just looking at my phone, and I didn't see that the driver went a different route than I've usually gone, and we got really stuck in traffic, and it was kind of the longer way around. And at first I was feeling kind of pissed at him, but then I was also feeling pissed at myself, and generally, or I used to really think like, oh, I'm such an idiot, like I should have left earlier, or that was my fault, like I did this, I did that. Like I was really I would say things like, I always do this, I'm always late. Like I would really make it mean like something's wrong with me, right? I would make it mean something, and I would really wish that I was different, or I would really wish this didn't happen. But I remembered this concept, and I was like, okay, you know what? Like if this happened, that if this failure happened, then like this was supposed to happen, and why? Why was it supposed to happen? Okay, well, I've gone into this, I've taken this route, or I've taken this trip like many times before, many times, and I've never had a problem with getting stuck in traffic or taking this long. So then of course I assumed that it was going to be the same just like any other time. I assumed that it's going to take this long, and that I left at the right amount of time. Okay, so that was what I thought, and so of course then when this happened, it happened, right? Because I had that assumption. Okay, so now I've learned that like I can't always assume that. I can't always assume that like the driver will go the route that I want him to take. Okay, so now I know for next time this was a learning experience, and then I could skip all of the beating myself up, right? I could skip all of what I'm making it mean for, I'm disorganized, or I'm such a piece of shit, whatever, right? Like, I could skip all that part, and then I got to the learning part, and I was like, okay, cool, now I know for next time, and it was just like so much less drama. So like I want you to think about it like this, like if you think about anything that you want to be able to do, for example, for me it's like, if I can't draw a human body without reference, then I'm not supposed to. Is a 3-month-old baby supposed to be able to run? No, right? Like, of course not. A 3-month-old baby has not gone through the evolution in order to become a toddler that can run. A 3-month-old baby hasn't fallen down enough times learning how to walk, failing at walking over and over again for his legs, like the muscles in his legs, to learn how to walk correctly, how to be able to hold his balance, how to gain the muscle strength to be able to hold this baby up. Imagine if a baby fell and we're like, oh man, that baby fell. That means he's never going to grow up and be able to run. That means, he's a failure. It means that he's never going to be able to get back up again. It means he doesn't know what he's doing, right? Like that makes no sense. Of course, we don't ever think that about any baby. So if we're not able to do something right now, we're supposed to. There's just some things that we don't know quite yet. And the only way to find out is to do it and fail and do it wrong, so that we can know, so we can find out, right? And so we can get better. So making this mindset shift for me has been really one of the best things that I could learn. And by the way, I'm always learning it. I'm definitely not saying that every single failure feels neutral and feels amazing, but it's always gotten easier every single time. And I get more confident every single time knowing that like I'm gonna be able to be okay. It's brought me so much more confidence that like any downturn, anything that like didn't turn out the way I wanted, didn't turn out the way I expected. Like there's something to learn here. This was supposed to happen and I just need to figure out what it is that I need to learn from this. And then also knowing that everything starts with my thoughts, then I know what to work on. This method, just like the baby falling, falling all the time and then learning how to walk, getting back up again, like this method of failing and then learning from it and then failing again and then learning from it, this is the method that humans have used since the dawn of time. This is how humans have made every single thing in our society, in our civilization. It's how everything has progressed. It's from failing over and over again. There was no guidebook on how to create fire. There was no guidebook on how to create a light bulb. There was no guidebook on how to create antibiotics. So this is it. This is how you do it. So you are not exempt from this process, my friends. And the best news is that in today's society, in our current progressed civilization, the worst thing that happens when we fail is a feeling. That's it. Whereas back then, the worst thing that could happen is somebody actually might die, right? But not today. Today, the worst thing that happens is a feeling. Okay, so this is all theory until you go out and apply it. You can practice this, but you really can't think your way into feeling more neutral or curious about failure until you go out and fail and actually practice this. And you practice not making it mean something. Seriously, like pick a thought that is your favorite go-to when it comes to when you feel insecure or when you feel like you're failing, right? Like, I'm not a real artist, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, whatever, right? Like, I'm not cut out for it. Find a single thought that your brain loves to choose. Expect that this is going to come up again the next time that you make art or that you do something that you don't know quite yet how to do. But this time you're prepared. This time you're not surprised by it. You know it's gonna come. And then try it once. Try it one time to not go there, to not indulge this thought, to either decide like, okay, nope, we're not doing that today. We can do that tomorrow if we want to, and so on. But today we're not gonna make this mean anything. Or you can just let the thought be there. You can let it linger and then recognize it for what it is, a sentence in your mind. So I wish you many failures this next week. Happy failing, and I'll talk to you guys in the next module. Bye.